Are you thinking beyond just achievement and you want to particularly impact children in the next generation? That's kind of what we're talking about today. So welcome to Legacy Her Way. This is the podcast where we explore how women define and build legacy on their own terms. I'm your host, Tanya Hendrix, and legacy isn't just about what we leave behind someday. It's the choices we're making right now, who we're building for, what we're building and preserving. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about a good bit today, I think, with our guest. But legacy is also about creating that peace of mind, or what I have been calling this season harmony, not balance, but harmony along the way. Today's conversation is with Andrea Alvarez, who brings a story shaped by service and leadership. So wherever you're listening, whether you're driving, you're folding laundry, just taking some time for yourself, I hope you hear something today in this conversation that will inspire you, but also help you reflect upon your own journey. So let's get started. Today's guest is Andrea Alvarez, who was first elected to serve on the Huntsville City Schools Board of Education for District 3 in 2022. We're recording this in 2026. Prior to her election, she served as the president of Challenger Elementary PTA. She grew up in Huntsville, which if you're from the Huntsville area, you realize, or if you live here, you realize that's kind of rare these days. But she grew up in Huntsville and graduated Grissom High School. She earned a bachelor's degree in criminology from Auburn University. Later got a master's of science in information technology, cybersecurity from Florida Institute of Technology. She worked as a juvenile probation officer from Madison County, and then went to work for the Huntsville City Municipal Court as a court clerk. She later moved into the defense sector, working security and cybersecurity initiatives. She is currently a senior financial analyst, I think for a contractor for the Department of Defense. She enjoys volunteering in the community. She and her husband have a blended family of 4 children, and this I thought was very interesting and wonderful. Together, they have fostered over 120 homeless animals. That's a lot of fostering, a lot of animals out the door. Welcome to the show, Andrea.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, that's wonderful. When I saw that 120, that's a lot. How over what length of time?
5 years. Yeah, it took 5 years to do that. Yep.
Have there been any foster fails?
Oh, yes. 3. 3. And a bunny, actually. 3 and a bunny.
Really?
So, yeah.
Okay. Those are, I have some friends who do, I can't do fosters. I like my marriage, and if I brought home a foster dog, I probably wouldn't be married anymore. But yeah. I love that when I see my friends and other people fostering dogs and animals and children, obviously, because it just takes a lot of heart and dedication to do that.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I want to dive right in and ask this first question. You have done, I've kind of mentioned some of the things that you have done in your career. You're a juvenile probation officer. You have worked in the city court system. You are now a financial analyst. So you've had kind of some twists and turns along the way. Yeah. But as we sit here today in 2026, how do you define legacy or success in your life?
So, I mean, bottom line, it's just leaving something better than you found it. That's legacy. That's success to me. And, I went to Grissom. I had a pretty privileged life. I went to Auburn. Again, it was a pretty privileged life. While I was at Auburn, I started meeting people from different backgrounds, and you started to realize that not everyone grew up like you. Especially when I started when I graduated, I came back. I worked as a juvenile probation officer. You're seeing what other kids are going through. And at the time, I was 21. And some of these kids were 17. I mean, we could have went to high school together. They were so impacted by their lives and had no power. And, I think that just started opening my eyes to how different other people have it and how we can help change that, because everyone deserved a life that I had. I mean, that's as simple as it comes. Everyone deserved a great childhood. Everyone deserves a great life.
Right. And I was curious about that juvenile probation, the time that you did that, because I used to be a criminal defense. I've been a prosecutor. I've been a criminal defense attorney. Yeah. And so I worked with a lot of juveniles. I worked with a lot of people who were just at that 17, 18-year-old mark. And I saw some of the family situations they came from. I mean, some came from good families. Others had no support system whatsoever.
Right.
So when you started as a juvenile, it sounds like you did that right out of college. So you got out of college, went right into juvenile probation. Was that something that you wanted to do, or is that something you just kind of fell into?
So, I was a criminology major. I really wanted to be in that field. I worked third shift at the Neves Davis Center. I was the only probation officer from midnight to 8.
You were probably.
It was difficult. Yeah, it was difficult being 21 and going into work while my friends were, downtown. But I did it, and I quickly realized that I had no power to affect change. The system is not set up for inserting services. Now, the Neves Davis Center does a great job. They try to solve the problems before any child goes to the adult criminal system. Mm-hmm. However, you're not solving the actual basis of their issues. DHR was overwhelmed. A lot of these kids, if they got arrested in the middle of the night and you called their parents wouldn't come get them. I mean, it was true. These kids had no support, and I knew that I had no way to fix it in that capacity. And so I didn't stay very long. I decided that it'd be better if I could make enough money to support myself to where I could then start inserting myself back in through a nonprofit realm to help kids. And I later went on and helped, I was on the board for HEALS for 2 terms. I was at Huntsville Hospital Foundation for 2 terms. It's just, I've always had a passion for helping kids. Mm-hmm. Parenting is hard for everybody. It's really hard when you're low income. It's really hard when you have medical conditions. Mm-hmm. If you have mental health disorders or substance abuse disorders. So it takes the rest of us to step in and give those kids a chance. And I've always felt that way.
So when you say you've always felt that way, so when you were in college, you were pursuing your criminology degree, were you thinking then about impact, or were you thinking about career?
I think it was a little bit of both. The criminology curriculum was heavy in stereotypes, and so when you start looking at the sociology and the genres and the stereotypes, you start seeing your own belief system get questioned. And so I think that really what motivated me was debunking these traumas that carried from generation to generation, and how you could insert change. And I mean, there's organizations here in Huntsville that specialize in that, that know that it takes 20 years to change a generation of poverty. Mm-hmm. And I just was really fascinated with that. I was like, clearly there's a way to do it. We just all need to buy into it and do it.
So what steps did you take to buy into that and do it?
So really just always saying yes. So, and then advocating for kids, like I said, I was on third shift. I was alone. I had no direct supervision while I was there. But I would leave notes for my director the next morning, and I would say, this kid did this, or you could kind of see sometimes some racial disparities in charging and things like that I was picking up very young. As why was one kid allowed to just get picked up and another kid getting held for the same charge? I mean, that stuff was happening. Seeing kids that might have got a little bit too roughed up when they were taken into custody, I didn't like that, and I didn't think that would help them not offend in the future. Mm-hmm. So just knowing. And there are great police officers, but there's also some that had their own biases. And this was a long time ago, 20 years ago. But it's just, we as society have got to step in for kids regardless. And I later went on, after I got out of this field, I was getting married, and I needed to have money for there's no money in the court system.
No, there's not.
So I had to get a higher paying job. So I actually was the manager of Maggie Moo's Ice Cream at Bridge Street for like 2.5 years. And I had 40 employees, and they were all high school kids. And so they were from every single high school in the region, from Bob Jones to the county. I had them all, and you could see the disparities in their education there. Really? And I thought that was fascinating, that I had some kids that I would honestly consider illiterate, and wow, some that were going to college on full ride scholarships for academics. And I was like, what is this? And when you just start peeling back the layers and the onions, And, I would talk to the kids, and some of them would literally say, well, you don't actually care about us. Like, nobody actually cares about us. And it was like those comments where you realize that kids are trying to stand alone as 16-year-olds, and that's just not how this world is supposed to be.
Yeah.
And that's really, if you just talk to kids, keep your ear to the ground, and try to help them with their mental health and just support them. I've just always thought that we owe that to every child in our community. And I've never been one to just take care of my own. I take care of all. You'd ask my kids. I'm always the mom that like stops when I see a kid walking. I'm like, do you have a ride? And my kids are mortified. They're like, stop talking to them. But I was like, I'm not going to leave a kid behind. I don't care what it is. Like, I was like, I'm going to make sure they're safe. So,
well, that heart for children that you have, and it sounds like at an early age, whether it's in high school or college, when you're kind of like, oh, not everybody grew up the way I did. What that was in you and still in you now, is that kind of what prompted you into working with the school system, with the school board?
Yeah. So, I'm one of those people that can take a lot of hits. I know a lot of people can't, but I can. And what I was seeing, it was two simultaneous trajectories intersecting that got me to this point. And one was, I had a daughter recently diagnosed with dyslexia. The school system didn't understand what it was nor how to help. And so I was seeing that I was able to get my daughter private services and catch her up and advocate for her. But these other parents next to me couldn't, either financially or mentally or just their own lack of education, could not keep up. And it was clear in first grade that my daughter's path and some of her friends' paths were diverging because of that.
That early.
So it was really important to me that we were able to create a school system that allowed all the kids to overcome their disabilities together, and not just have some parents who had the means be able to get their kids through. Mm-hmm. The second part was teacher morale was so low, and I wouldn't say at the time that I was really like close friends with some of the teachers that I was seeing every day, but being a PTA president, they were coming to me and asking for things that I thought the school system should cover. The belief was, we can't ask for these things. It makes us look like we're not doing well if we have any kind of needs or wants. And it was just this whole thing where I'm like, this is not how any other industry in the world works. If I needed a pencil, I could go and get a pencil paid for by the government to do my job. It's crazy that teachers weren't able to do that then. So it was just more like an advocacy that they needed somebody like me who was willing to fight, both the kids and the adults, because I just have the personality that fights.
This episode of Legacy Her Way is sponsored by Huntsville Estate Planning Lawyer, helping you protect your family and what you're building and preserve the legacy you are creating. Your family and your life's work deserves more than hope. It deserves a plan. Contact Huntsville Estate Planning Lawyer today to make your plan. When you began to pursue, I know we kind of skipped over your civilian career. You were juvenile probation, so you worked in the public sector in juvenile probation, then the city hall or city municipal court, and you went to the private sector, and you're still there for your full-time job. But then you started working with the PTA and working with the schools. Was there something that you had to change about your belief system? Or does it, like when you decided to make that, not really a pivot from, well, I guess it would be a pivot from working in the public sector, working in the private sector. Was there something about your beliefs that had to pivot and change during that period of time?
Not necessarily. I think, I'm pretty principled. I believe what I believe. I think I have a very good compass of what's right and what's wrong. And I'm pretty immovable in those beliefs. And what I did bring from the private sector is how it works well. I've had the privilege of working, under 4-star and 3-star generals and seeing how they get major missions accomplished. And when you can take those learning lessons to field day at school, it just becomes instantly a lot more efficient. And so that was the type of stuff, organizations, creating agendas, things that weren't happening just because no one had ever seen it done before. And so my career of just watching others lead meetings and lead products and lead urgent products, and I just bring that back consistently. I bring it to the board right now. What we see in education is that the educators educate the educators who educate the educators who now, work for the educators, and they never leave their field. And so having outside board members with other career fields bring in has really been impactful and beneficial to Huntsville City Schools, I think.
I think that would be true in just about every career. I mean, with me in the legal field, I'll often look outside of the legal field to see what other industries are doing, what people in other groups are doing, and learn from that. Because there are successful things happening in those other groups. We can't have tunnel vision. We can't just be stuck in our own little tribe or whatever you want to call it and not be exposed to other things and how other people do things, because it can have application to your specific profession or the issue you're dealing with. So you became the PTA president, but were you involved in the PTA before you became a PTA president?
Yes, I had been on the board at least, 2 or 3 years. I don't remember. It's been a long time since that. So I did fundraising. I was treasurer. I did like spirit nights and stuff. So it's easy to get plugged in. There was a lack of parental involvement at that time. It was pre-COVID, but now that our district is primarily, 2 working parents, it's just hard for parents to be in school all the time. And so I have a job with generous leave benefits. I was able to just take off and help when I could. And, I think if more people did that, if more people prioritized supporting their schools with what little free time they have, I think, schools would really, really benefit from that. So I've always practiced what I preach.
And so I'm wondering, I guess this is probably something that you're working on you probably did this with PTA, but also now with the board, is how to get parents to be involved. Like and this gets into some of the questions I wanted to ask you too, like how have you, and again, I don't like the term balanced, but how have you found the harmony or the margin in helping your kids' school? So before you went on the board, you were still volunteering at your child's school. You were still working with the PTA, became the PTA president while having a full-time job and raising children and having a family. How did you find the harmony in all of that?
So it's probably a lot in how I was raised and how I parent now. My parents were incredibly hard workers, still are, also volunteered, also gave back every time they could. I went along with them. If my dad had to work a Saturday, I went to the office with him. It shows you that you're all, as a family, invested into these goals or these principles that you have defined. Mm-hmm. So same with my kids. I mean, I haul them around with me. They have unloaded, loaded, pulled wagons, taken out trash. They do all that with me. And they see it. Same with even the fostering. I mean, they help. They give the dogs baths. They, help at adoption events. And I think that's the type of child I want to raise. I want to raise a child that isn't just going to see a problem and walk by. I want to raise a child that sees the trash needs to be taken out and they take it out. And that's just what I do. There's no job too small for me. I picked up trash from the playground yesterday when I picked up my kids at school. It's everyone's responsibility, and I think you can't just say that. You have to show it. And so, there's no off time in parenting. 100% of the time you're raising kids, and you need to raise them exactly like you want them to be raised, which is showing them.
And speaking of your children, in doing this research for this interview and also just being a resident of Huntsville, I have seen and heard kind of the vitriol that has been directed at you. Mm-hmm. And you have young children. How have you kind of managed? I mean, I'm assuming they have probably seen things, heard things. There's probably kids at school have said things to them that they've heard from their parents or others. How have you helped your children deal with that? Because, you chose to run for office. They're just kind of, they're with you. So how do you help them deal with that?
Yep. So, they follow my Facebook pages. They see it all, and we laugh about it sometimes. There's really never been a time that I've gotten upset by it. I think, like I said, I stick to my principles. I stick to the right and wrong. I have no issue taking hits for something that I know is right. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm showing them is this is what you have to do if you want to invoke change, because it is so easy for people to back out. It is so easy for people to quit because it's hard. Mm-hmm. That's not what I am. My oldest daughter, she wants to be a radiologist. That's a long-term commitment. Yeah. So I tell them, if you're showing them this, if you're showing them you can do hard things and you can endure and you survive, it just makes you stronger. And I think that's what my haters don't understand is like every time they do it, it makes me stronger because I survived it. Mm-hmm. And I think once they realize that it's benefiting me, they should most of them quit. But I still have some, not too smart ones that keep trying.
You have a very dedicated fan club.
That's a great way to put it.
Well, I know it has to be hard for them. It's hard for you as a mom looking at and seeing. Is it taking a toll on them, or they just have realized this is just something that we deal with?
I think that, I think if I was at home crying about it, yes, it would take a toll on them. But when they realize, like literally I laugh about it, we joke about it at dinner, I think that it's just like another thing to them. They're not immune to kid behavior. It's not much different than kid behavior. And there's still kids that bully and all the things that happen. They see that mm-hmm. firsthand. So now they just see that it also happens in the adult world. And you just have to get thick skin. And, mm-hmm. That's what I'm trying to do. I will say that they also they're my toughest critics. They come home sometimes and they're like, you need to do something about this. I'm like, it's like, that's not really how this works. But they have their own grievances in our school system and I have to hear about it. Trust me.
Well, I think that's great that you've got the inside track.
I get it.
Yeah. You've got it from the child's perspective. Like these are things that we're seeing. You probably hear it from the parents and you hear it from the teachers. And so I think it's great to have children come in and they can give you that real-time feedback and honest feedback of how the policies that you all are voting on and doing, and what's happening in, with the policies in the country, how that's really affecting them day to day inside the classroom. So I think that's great that they come home and tell you got to fix this.
Yep.
Well, looking back at, what you've had to persevere through and had to go through, and you've seen the issues from even when you were in college and how there are people who have to struggle harder than others. There are people that have different lifestyles that make things harder, not really lifestyles, but not lifestyles, circumstances that make things harder for them. And then you've had to persevere through the vitriol. And I know even probably when you were PTA president, you were hearing a lot of bad things. What lessons from your perseverance or that you have learned through the years with the people you've worked with, what are some lessons through these hard parts that you can share with the women who are listening, who are also facing hard things as they're pushing through the day-to-day, or they're growing, or they're trying to help their children deal with some of the bullies and other things happening in their lives?
Yeah. So funny enough, I was going through a traumatic divorce when I was PTA president at Challenger. And the words my dad gave me was, you're going to be really lonely. Make sure you do something productive with it. Mm-hmm. And so, I just really, anytime I didn't have my children, I just poured into PTA. I poured into fostering dogs. I did all of that to stay focused on something good in life. And I think that even on your darkest days, when you are able to see these small wins for others, it gets you out of that negativity, and it gets you just get stronger. Your confidence builds. You can handle things. And so I think really what it comes down to is people they lose their self-confidence a lot in life. I think there's a lot of waves of that happen. And I have learned that the best way to rebuild your self-confidence is to be a part of something outside of your own self or your own needs. Because then you just get, I personally just get satisfaction from that. And so I went straight from PTA president. I got divorced in 2021. I ran for office less than 8 months later. I mean, it made me stronger, and it gave me a fight, and it gave me the power I needed. And I just realized that, I could handle anything. And I think when women can get through really difficult things, they're unstoppable. And I think that's why people try to stop me. I think I'm showing another way, and I think that scares people, because a lot of people like to stay broken, and I wouldn't stand for it.
I certainly agree that one, people do like to stay broken, but I also agree that I think getting out and helping others is the way to get out of that brokenness, and the way to kind of climb out of any depression, or if you just don't see a way out. When you start helping other people, it changes your perspective. You realize that one, you are strong enough to help others. Like when you're helping somebody else, you realize you can do hard things.
Yes.
And that just kind of translates to your life. And I know you mentioned earlier that you have volunteered with HEALS. For those who are listening is not familiar with HEALS, what is HEALS?
So it's health establishments at local schools, which are practitioners provided for medical, dental, and optometry at school locations. Because, like I said, when you start peeling back the onion and realizing the barriers that certain children have, one is access to medical care or dental care, especially in a preventative sense. So if a kid was getting sick, parents have to take off work, or maybe they don't even have a car to take them to the doctor. And what was happening was the kids were getting to the point where they were really sick. And when you're really sick, you miss a lot of school. You know, obviously it's more expensive, it's more traumatic, all of that. So HEALS was a model where health, dental, and vision were at your school, or they provided transportation for you to get well visits, or, preventative dental care, even some sick visits, immunizations, just any way to help parents where the parents didn't have to take off work. And it's a great organization. It's co-located at a couple of our campuses, both in Huntsville and some in the county, where we're just helping the lower income population be able, so the kids can stay healthy and not have all their teeth pulled, and just things that shouldn't fall on kids just because their parents are low income.
Right. So all that you have done, with help, you've helped children through the years. You've really had a heart for helping children and kind of those who are defenseless. So like with helping the children, helping the animals. So I think we can learn from that as to volunteering, spending your time in the community that's going to make a difference in the world, whatever that may be. Not everyone's going to want to foster animals, and it may not be anyone's cup of tea, but maybe you can go help Habitat build a home, or maybe you can fundraise for HEALS or some other organization. Maybe go build a bed with Sleep in Heavenly Peace. I mean, there are different places that you can get plugged in to help the people in the community. Obviously, if you have children in the school, please work with the school and help the school out there. They really need it. So what, and maybe we've already mentioned it, but what is a belief or a value or lesson that you hope to pass on, maybe to your children, but also specifically to the community that you are representing? So you're representing District 3 for the Huntsville City School Board. What are some values or beliefs that you're hoping to pass on?
So mainly, if you care about something, you've got to be willing to fight for it. And people do that usually with their own families, but they don't open it up to their broader community. Post-COVID, and I guess with a lot of transports coming to Huntsville, the old school community feeling is fleeting, in my opinion. And we are slowly trying to build that back, where we're relying on each other, we're helping each other. I mean, things as little as carpooling. there's no carpooling really anymore. Parents are just not linking up and helping each other. And I think we just need to get back to that point where we trust each other, where we want to take care of each other, where we want people to have easier days, where maybe we take on a burden so they have less of a burden if they're going through a trying time. That's just the kind of stuff that we're just not as plugged in with our neighbors anymore. And I think that's a disservice for our children. I think they need to see that so that they can continue that, or we're going to live in this AI robot, everyone stay home to themselves community. And I just don't think that's what we were built for.
How do we fix it, though? How do we fix that?
Yeah. I think when you bring them together, like I said in the beginning, when my kids were first in school, I was surprised because when I went to the same schools my kids are in now. When I was in those schools, there were 4 pages in the yearbook of parent volunteers. I mean, they were in the yearbook, library helpers, cafeteria helpers, room moms. We couldn't get anybody to help. And so there was a small group of us who just wouldn't give up. We were old school South Huntsville Grissom graduates who saw how it used to be and how beneficial that was. And so we decided to rebuild it. And it took a long time, and now it's built. I'm not even on the Challenger Elementary PTA anymore because it's beautiful. They don't need me. They are so successful because now so many people want to help. And they're bringing in hundreds of parents multiple times a year, and we're eating together, and our kids are performing together, and it's just beautiful. And that's what it just took a generation to rebuild that. And now we're going to move it up, to the high school. When I was growing up, everyone in the community went to Grissom games, whether they had students or not. That was what you did on Friday nights, and that has stopped. And it's just, we just got to get back to where we're wrapping around kids, what benefits kids, all kids, and then our community will stay afloat because of that. That was what was so special about Huntsville, and that is the major thing that we can't lose.
Right.
And so that's why I'm fighting for it. That's, I will fight for kids.
Well, I appreciate that. I've always had a heart for children. Children are just innocent.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't ask to be brought into the world. They didn't ask for the circumstances. They're here, and they're our responsibility.
Yep.
And so I appreciate what you're doing for the children, not just in District 3, but all the children in the city of Huntsville school system and the community that you've worked with in the past. And I'm sure that what you're accomplishing, like what you just talked about at Challenger PTA, other PTAs are taking note of that and maybe working that within their systems as the best they can, because I think it will just have a good impact.
Yes, definitely.
What do you want people to know about how they can work with you for what's important to Huntsville City Board of Education, specifically District 3, since you represent District 3?
Yep. So I'm 100% always available. I have never turned down a meeting with anybody, a phone call. I've always answered the phone. So, and I have taken a lot of initiatives to the board. Not everything gets through. Not everything is a unanimous joint agreement, but I am always going to be the voice of my people. And I get the most hate I get is that people don't quote unquote like my politics, and I've heard that from both Democrats and Republicans, which cracks me up because I'm like, all right. But so I will go and take their thought process that they don't even think I agree with. I will still take that forward if I think it's the right thing. And that's where I think people can't comprehend is that sometimes right isn't aligned with your personal beliefs. And again, when you have principles like I do, that doesn't stop me. I will always do what's right, even if it's not right for me. And I think that's what people need to do more of. And especially right now in our society is if you stick to right, you can't go wrong. I mean, it's a quirky little slogan I just created, but but it's true.
And I want to just kind of echo what you just said there, though, because I have talked with other quote unquote politicians, people who are in state government or local government. And the key is you can't just be an echo chamber. You can't live in an echo chamber. You have to talk to people of different persuasions, and you have to do what's right, not necessarily for what you believe is right or wrong, but what's right for like for you, for the children in District 3. What is the right thing for them may not be what you necessarily believe in, but that's going to be the right thing. And that's what you got to move forward with. And I think we have forgotten about that in this society.
It's really interesting. It's really interesting what's changed.
Yes, it is. It's a very interesting time to be around. And if you want to know how interesting the times are, go to her Facebook page and just kind of scroll through and you'll see some things. And, I applaud you for putting your neck out there, being willing to take that vitriol and being willing to take the hate or whatever you want to call it, because you do feel very passionate about helping children and trying to make sure every child, regardless of their socioeconomic background, what home they come from, what family situation they come from, you want to make sure that they all get the same level of education and opportunity. So I applaud you for doing that, because it just takes a special person to be in public office right now, in any form of public office. And so I appreciate you being willing to do that.
Thank you. It's actually been an honor. I mean, I feel like we've made really positive change since I've been on the board. So I think we're getting there, and slowly we'll rebuild it just like we did the PTA, and it'll continue. And I'm a firm believer that once you build it, people will come. And I've proven that several times. When you show people how it's done, then people get the confidence to be able to do it too. And I think we just need more of that.
Yeah. Well, one final closing, and just by the way, I will have a link on the show notes for Ms. Alvarez's Facebook page, for the Board of Education page. And if there's anything else you want me to link to them, I will link that as well to make sure that those of you can reach out to her. Please give encouragement, not hate. But yeah, reach out to her. And if you have any suggestions or, helpful comments, please actually reach out to her. And certainly if you are in District 3, I'm going to speak specifically District 3 because that's where I live, but also where you are the city board education representative. Get involved with the schools, help out in some way. If you're a parent, be a part of the PTA, offer help in some way. But any parent or anyone in the city, please get involved with the school systems and help them along the way. One final question I ask everyone at the end. I want you to finish this sentence. Legacy Her Way means.
Okay, legacy her way means literally her way. We should all be proud of who we are and what we did in this life. And, I know if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, that I have zero regrets. And I think that is what this is all about, is I did what I wanted to do. I made positive change. That is my legacy. I'm proud of it, even with the negativity, even if it's embarrassing for some, cringy, hard for my friends and family to read.
Yeah.
It was worth it. And I think more people just need to know that it is worth it. It doesn't look like it from the outside, but it is so meaningful and worth it.
Well, and you have embodied the quote, be the change you want to see in the world. And so I appreciate you stepping up and being that change, particularly for young people, whether it's when you were in juvenile probation or now on the Board of Education. Thank you for stepping in and helping young people.
Of course. I'd do it all over again.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening. And if this episode spoke to you, go in and give us a like and a review. But more importantly, be sure to subscribe and share this episode. If you have students in the school system, share this episode with others so that they can be encouraged and inspired by your Board of Education representative who is just here, just kind of pouring out her heart to you. So I want to thank you for listening to Legacy Her Way, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss another episode. And I will see you in the next conversation. Bye.